Connections. Gina and I have a crazy guest on today. I mean, literally, she is just off the wall bouncing, you know. Gina Scott Hawkins, my co-host, is with Star Media. She takes care of social media, website design, brochure design. If you ever need that done, please, get a hold of us and we can make sure that you get connected with her. And I'm Barbara Hook with Hook Connect, where we go out and find those honest contractors and pass them leads. And today our guest is Cathy Tooley. Met her, maybe a month ago. And this woman has so much on the ball. Educator, past educator, motivational speaker, consultant. Cathy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit, first of all, about your background and what you did in the education system.
Okay, so I have been in education for 30 years. 30 years. I started in 1984. That's just yesterday.
You were young then.
I know.
weren't you?
I think I was 6.
Yeah.
6 then. Started as a teacher. I taught high school Spanish for 20 years. And then transitioned into administration in the fall of 2004. And I was an assistant principal for 2 years doing discipline and attendance. That was riveting.
Fun stuff.
Riveting, yep. And then transitioned into the principal's role in 2006 and continued there until November of this year when I retired. So I have taught high school Spanish and been from the teacher's desk to the principal's chair.
And
everywhere in between.
And I know from us talking before, your main goal and your purpose for that retirement was you just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah, I said when I went into teaching, let's start with, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. Always, since I think I knew what a career was. Back when you're little and you play those games when you're little, I used to sit and play. Yeah, I was always the teacher, and I made my brothers sit there.
And paper.
Right. Oh, and I graded their papers, and I don't even know what papers we did, and it didn't matter. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher, and I did that for 20 years, and I loved it. And I don't think I thought about being an administrator. I didn't rule it out, but I never thought about it. But once I transitioned into becoming an administrator, that's kind of a bridge I can't recross. Once you become an administrator in a school, it's very difficult to being a teacher. And then once I became a principal, I would say that what I learned of our educational system was not what I went to school to do, and it wasn't what I thought existed, and it wasn't what our kids deserved.
Well, and maybe it was back in 1984.
Maybe.
But things have changed a lot.
Things have changed. And I can remember hearing administrators talk about, the political things in schools or what was happening or rules that they had to go by. And I remember thinking, that can't all be true. They must be bittered. They must be old fogies who need to retire. They must be, that what they're saying can't be true. And I think I needed to experience it myself, and I did.
Wow.
And it is.
Wow.
So in November, I decided that it was time, because I didn't want to, all of us have met those employees that are still with the company, and you're thinking, why didn't you retire 5 years ago? Because you're bitter and you're hateful and you're nasty. And I refused to take a career that had fed my family for 30 years and leave it bitter and nasty and hateful. I wouldn't do it, so I left.
Well, and because you were a teacher, you are able to be that speaker and be that speaker on just about any subject that anybody wants you to talk on.
Yeah.
So, not long ago, she appreciates the teaching industry because she, that's what fed her family for 30 years.
Absolutely.
But there are also some aspects that a lot of people don't know, and they probably won't know till they pick up your book and read it.
Right.
But we'll discuss that in another segment. So tell us what made you want to be a Spanish teacher?
Yeah.
I know, really.
I think so. I went to college to be a music teacher. I did. I went to college I was always in choir, and I sang, and I thought I want to be a choir director. That's what I love. I love music. So I went to college as a music major, and I went to Marian College back when it was called Marian College. Now we've become hoity-toity, and it's Marian University. But I met a nun there who taught Spanish, and she was such a charismatic person that I was just almost drawn to her. And I thought, I don't know what classes she teaches, but I'm going to take all of her classes. And before I knew it, I thought, maybe I want to teach Spanish. And so I did. I switched my major to Spanish and minor in English and loved it. I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with everything about it because she was the kind of teacher that you just fell in love with. And so I did. And so I did that for 20 years. Absolutely loved it. And as I said, I think I would still be there today.
Well, Spanish was not my cup of tea. I went to Beach
One
Grove.
semester.
I went to Beach Grove, and it was my sophomore year, first year to take it. And right in the middle of my sophomore year, my mom moved me to Speedway. Well, Speedway has a lot higher academic levels.
Right.
So at Beach Grove, we were still learning how to say the words, and at Speedway, we weren't speaking any
Right.
English. So I ended up taking another year of it because I loved this teacher and she really helped me and tutored me and all that stuff, but I didn't take it in my senior year because it was awful.
Yeah, we taught immersion at the school where I was at, so even in first year we spoke Spanish
Yeah.
the whole time. Now you do, I always laughingly say we called it Spanglish because you hold up a paper and almost mimic and mime what you want them to do. But
Well, and I remember all of us sitting at tables listening on headphones to what this videotape or recording said, and then we all had to repeat it, and then we had to say what it meant. It was awful.
I couldn't get past the part where the words are said in the opposite order. So I just was like, I'm over this.
I loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
Well,
Loved it.
we
Loved
need,
it.
We need to take a short break before the next segment, and Gina will be quizzing you at the next segment. But we want to thank Logan Street Signs and Banners, and it's in Wofford Theater especially because they offer us this opportunity every week, and we will be back shortly.
Welcome back to Hook Connections. We are here today with our guest, Cathy Tooley. She has talked to us in the last segment about her teaching experience and why she got into teaching, and now we want to know, what are you doing now? I know you just started a new company, and what is that all about?
So I started a new company in December, doing a lot of public speaking. I've been doing public speaking for 30 years. The difference was in front of a classroom or in front of teachers.
Right.
And now I work with clients who need a dynamic speaker for whatever event. It can be from a small group meeting of 20 people to a large keynote of 200.
Okay, so what would your key audience, who would you like to be giving this information to?
You know, I get asked that all the time, and here's my answer to that. I'm really not particular. Obviously, I'm partial. I'll always be partial to educators, always. I'm going to be partial probably to women and women empowerment issues. I'm always leaning toward to moms, because I am a mom. But I've spoken at corporate events that were all men as well. So I think especially anyone that wants to know what's happening in education, anyone that wants to hear about how they can make our educational system better, or anyone who's just looking for a great speaker to liven up their meeting, I'm their gal.
Okay, so what's the name of your company?
So the name of my company is Tools for Success.
Okay, and if people are looking for you online, how can they find you?
I'm on the web. I've got a web page. It's cathytooley.com. Of course, I'm also on Facebook, so any of that's accessible, Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, or you would know about all of those things, because Gina's done a great job helping me get LinkedIn with all of those things, but you can find me anywhere on the web with those.
Okay, so public speaking, educating, and let's talk about this book.
Yeah. So have you ever known in life where you just have something? So this book has been in here for probably 10 years. Probably 10 years ago. I can remember having things happen as I was an administrator at that time, an assistant principal, and thinking, I'm going to write this down someday. But I don't know how many people think that. Maybe I'm just weird that I think that way, but I've always known that I wanted to write a book. Through my last 2 principalships, I knew I wanted to write a book because I felt like, let's face it, education is in trouble. We all know it. There was a day that America and our students used to outperform any country. And that is not true anymore.
Far from true.
It's far from true. And we all know it.
Yeah.
What made me write this book is this. No educator is sitting in a school, no teacher, no principal, no superintendent, no assistant superintendent is sitting in their buildings right now saying, I wonder how we fix this. Wonder what we do. I don't know what's broken. They all know how to fix it. Every one of us as educators know how to fix it. We know what's wrong and we know how to fix it. And so then the obvious thing people ask is, then why aren't they? And there's 2 reasons why they're not. Number 1, no one's asking them. No one's asking them. No one goes to an educator and says, what's wrong in your schools? How can we fix it? And the second and most important reason is it's political suicide to open their mouth.
Well, the school board's probably afraid to ask that question.
Right. There's no, if they open their mouth. So the title of my book is Our System is Broken. Views of education from one educator's view. So it's not an attack. It's an opportunity to really pull back the curtains on what's really going on in schools and how we can fix it.
You know, and I remember when I was in school, you know, if you were bad, you went to the principal's office and you got your butt.
Yeah, not anymore.
You know, I carried that through clear to the day that my kids graduated from high school.
That's right.
If they got in trouble, they got it at home too.
But you're a minority.
Yeah. And that, I feel, is one of the hugest problems that we have is parents don't care. Period.
I think you have to remember too that for most of us, we were parented differently than parents are parenting now.
Absolutely.
You know, most of us had a mom and or a dad who was at home, and we would have feared doing anything wrong because we knew they were home and they would leave school and come up there. And that's not happening for our kids now. Most of the kids that I have had over the past 30 years, if a parent is home, it's only one parent, and they're working 2 or 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. So it's not. I think it's real easy, and education loves to sit back and blame parents and say, well, they just don't care. That's just not true.
Well, there's a lot of parents that don't.
You're right. There's some,
You know,
but that's
when
not.
a parent can't even speak English, you know, Tiffany Wessler, she's got that ray of hope, and she helps underprivileged children in the, you know, on the west side that maybe don't know who their dad is.
Sure,
Or
absolutely.
Or there's 10 kids and one mom, and the mom doesn't know how to read or write or anything. So, you know, a couple of kids, one of them's 12 years old, just went to the dentist for the first time
Absolutely.
in his life. You
Absolutely.
know, so teaching actual life skills, a lot of kids nowadays don't know that, you know, and who can be blamed for that? It's not our community, it's the parents.
I think the biggest change, if people ask me all the time, what's the change that you've seen over 30 years? And it's all over my book, and it's this. Teachers' jobs should be, and they went to school to be, teachers. They went to school to teach. They went to school to make sure you understood English, you were fluent in Spanish, you knew what happened in the U.S. world. That is not what is happening today.
Oh, the babysitter.
We are responsible for everything. The moral well-being, it's our responsibility to feed children. It's our responsibility to clothe them. It's our responsibility to provide sex education. It's our responsibility to teach right and wrong. We have to teach them how to be good, ethical people. I could keep going and going. And my point is that you have a teacher's plate who's already very loaded just to teach their content. And we just keep putting all these other things on it, and then we sit back as a society and wonder why our kids can't read and write.
Do you think that all started maybe when they started the some of those I-step tests are terrible, and I remember taking an annual test when I was a kid, and I don't remember what they were called.
I have a whole chapter in my book
Scholastic
about
test.
I have a whole chapter in my
I can't
book
wait till the book comes
about
out.
the testing. I think, what the chapter of the book talks about with the testing, I think testing at its core was good. I think we have to assess kids. We have
Absolutely.
to know if
Where
you're
they
teaching a
stand.
fourth grade class and I'm teaching a fourth grade class, we have to know where are our kids in comparison. Are we teaching what they need to know in fourth grade? I don't think any teacher's arguing that. What's happened to the testing is it's become a shell game now. Teachers have no idea what's in the test, what kind of things they need to be assessing, if that's even going to be handled. And our legislatures and politicians are too busy arguing about, it's become a platform now. The test has become a platform. And lost in all of that are the kids.
Absolutely.
They've gotten lost in the shuffle.
Wow.
Well, we could go on and on about this topic. We'll probably cover a little bit more of it in the next segment, but we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in just a moment.
Welcome back to Hook Connections. Our guest today is Cathy Tooley. Cathy, could you give everyone, to begin this segment, give everyone your contact phone number and your email address, because we could have people that are going to be listening in the next Monday through Friday at 8 o'clock, but they will not be watching it right now.
Sure. My email is ctooley19@yahoo.com. You can get me on the web at www.cathytooley.com. And then my phone number is 317-445-9658.
I guess one of the, I can't wait for the book to come out because I really want to read it. I have young grandkids in the school system, and I won't go to their school because that's just the way I always was, I remember a case where my son I got a call from Central 9 and it said, "Do you know when your son's going to be returning to school?" And I said, he has been going to school. Well, he's not at C9. So I called the school, and the principal answered, or the dean of boys, or whatever it was, and could you tell me why my son has not been going to C9? And he said, well, I don't know, let me check on that. And so he comes back to the phone and he says, well, I think he has an in-school suspension. And I said, you think? What would that be for? Well, I'm not sure, ma'am. And I said, well, I'm 20 minutes away, and I'm driving to that high school, and you better have an answer for me when I get there.
Yeah.
So anyway. But anyway, talk to us about your favorite chapter in your new book.
Ooh, boy, that's a tough question. I think any of the chapters that I talk about, teachers, teacher evaluations, teacher accountability, because I just feel so passionate. I feel like we are losing great educators every day. They're walking out the doors. They are tired of the attacks from the media to parent to school board to this dance that they're caught in of between the state and the local government and the Department of Education and our own governor. And it's not just Indiana. Every state feels it. I've interviewed teachers from across America. And so I think those are probably my favorite chapters, because I think that they will read this book. I don't think I let teachers off the hook. I think teacher evaluations, for example, are a real touchy chapter that I think are going to hit some nerves with people, because there are teachers that for a long time have said, you can't evaluate us. I teach kids. How do you evaluate my teaching a kid? And I say, how do we not? How do you not hold a student's learning accountable to a teacher? Now that hits buttons.
When you bring some of that up, I have something. My kids and my grandkids went to Franklin Township. Well, they still go to Franklin Township school system. So when they did away with the buses a couple of years, it was required that every one of those teachers talk to those children to have them go home and tell their parents to vote yes for the referendum. When we knew nothing about the details for the referendum.
Right.
That is wrong.
Right.
That is not a teacher's responsibility.
It's so, when I think back as a principal, what I asked my teachers to do, and even as they sat across in my office and I looked at them and said, I know it's not your job. But to not do it would have created such a firestorm. So I think that's my favorite. And then the second part, I think that we have to address, and it's huge in my book, is principals.
Absolutely.
I say all the time, I was an excellent principal. Excellent principal, I know I was. But we are delusional as a society if we believe that principals or superintendents are running their buildings, because they're not.
Right.
We are delusional. And it's so easy to sit back as a public and say, well, wonder why the principal doesn't do this, or why don't they fire that teacher, or why don't they make that decision? That's because they can't. Because they can't. Every single decision that a principal makes is either going to cost them their job or have them keep their job.
Well, and I think a school board member should be somebody that knows something about education.
That's a whole separate
It's
chapter.
like the teachers are held hostage.
Is there a chapter on that?
There's a
too?
whole chapter on the school board.
Oh, goodness.
A whole chapter on the school board. And again, it's not an attack to school board. I think that there are lots and lots of people out there listening to this now that have served on school boards that have nothing but the school's best interests at heart. I'm not talking to you. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to people that are elected because they have an agenda. I mean, I watched it. I used to be a union, be in our union very big when I was teaching, and I watched school board members be elected with the agenda to fire a teacher because they had wronged their child, and they didn't even make bones about it, that's why they were being elected. And these are the people that are making decisions about how we run our schools. I just think that I cannot for the life of me still understand in the year 2015, no other functioning board would have people on it that are educated in that field. I bet if you went into a hospital right now, go to any major hospital, you have doctors and nurses on that board because they know about medicine. If you would walk into any lawyer's office, big lawyer's office, it's going to be full of a firm of lawyers running the lawyer's office, not schools. Not schools. We have school board members that have claimed that they know about schools. Everybody believes they know about schools because they went to school. They have a child in school. They pass by the school. They've been in the school. They know how to bring a PTO cookie to the school. And they claim that makes you have no idea. God bless you for volunteering for that football game. That was the sweetest thing you ever did. Frying those hot dogs was so sweet. Thank you. But that doesn't make you competent to run a school. And school boards are making decisions to hire and fire superintendents. Superintendents superintendents who then are making decisions on who the principals are. It's just the whole system, the fact that there is a system running our schools and there's no educator on that system is, I still just scratch my head. I don't know how it's happening.
It's no wonder why you have kids in these schools that have no desire to learn.
No.
There's no ramifications if they don't. They can walk out of class. I mean, there's no, and it's such a, I've been substitute teaching a little bit this year, and I've seen so much in just the few schools that I've been to. It's amazing, though. There's no accountability on the kids' parts. There's no rules for them to follow. There's no, and the teachers are kind of held hostage because there's nothing they can do about it.
And every teacher, every principal is one decision away from being on the 6 o'clock news tonight. Mm-hmm. One decision away. And so imagine living your life that you know it's right to make this decision, but making it is going to put you on the 6 o'clock news tonight, which will cost you your job. So what they do is don't make it. It's what caused me to leave ultimately was this. I could no longer sit there and tout that I was doing in the best interest of kids, because I wasn't. I wasn't. I was doing what was in the best interest of me.
Wow.
To keep a job, and so I couldn't do it.
Well, so everybody, you're going to have to go get the book.
Wow.
Our system is broken?
Our system is broken.
Okay, be on the lookout for that.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So who's our guest next week?
Next week, we have a guy that, actually I'm connected to him on Facebook, but he taught a motorcycle rider education course that I took back in the 80s. And I did this just because I was selling insurance to bikers. And his name is Steve Pyatt. He's actually from the West Side. And he wrote a book recently. He's covered with tattoos. And he also has a design business and has for years. But he wrote a book entitled Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover. So he is going to be on the show talking about that and some of the nonprofits he's involved in and, how we might be able to help him. So it's always great to hear stuff like that.
Well, thank you for being on our show
You're
today,
welcome.
Miss
Thank you
Cathy.
for having me.
Thank you.
Thank
It was
you.
fun.
All right. And thank you all.
And we'll see you next week.
Okay.